Okay. So again, welcome. This afternoon, we are here for Zoom polling, Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning Workshop, Faculty Learning Opportunity, one of several we've got offered this semester. Today's session, we have 60 minutes. It's going to be a workshop. There'll be opportunity for hands-on if you want to build along with me. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of demonstration-based activities and kind of walking you through Zoom polling, some of the features along the way for today's session. I'm very informal with my workshops, so if you have any question at all, I would probably recommend just unmuting yourself and asking away, whether it's asking to repeat a process. If I slow down, sometimes I get very excited about some of these tools and I will run my mouth off, so feel free to get my attention. I probably won't be seeing the chat very often, so other than that, just interrupt and we'll address those questions. Some housekeeping notes. One is, you'll notice Peter Parker is on or in the Zoom room. That is just my secondary monitor. I like to have that up so I can make sure you are seeing what you should be seeing, because again, sometimes I get excited and I click through things and either forget to unshare my screen or share it, so Peter helps me see that. Unfortunately, that does mean that we don't have a celebrity guest appearance from the Amazing Spider-Man. But otherwise, I think we're ready to go. The last bit here is, and it should be, okay, we'll get to it in a second. So our learning outcomes for today, we are going to take a Zoom poll. Actually, we'll take several Zoom polls. I'll also show you how to create Zoom polls live in a course, as well as within the Zoom portal. If you would like to build one out with me, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, if your preferred learning style is just to absorb, just to kind of sit back and watch, more than welcome to do that. And we can always, attempt to build some at the end of today's workshop if there's any time left, or an additional, one-on-one consultation if you'd like to request that, which I will plug our CETL website. If you're not familiar, you can go to the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. Off the homepage, just look for faculty and staff for the last option. And then once on our website, you're going to see a big old button that says request a consultation. Fill out that Google form, and myself or one of our lovely CETL team members will be assigned to you to meet your needs, whether it's to take additional follow-up training, if you have a proposed idea for a faculty learning opportunity, or maybe a group or a department sort of led workshop or webinar. We're happy to do that as well, so feel free to take advantage of that. Okay, so back to our outcomes. After creating some Zoom polls, you'll also be able to compare the advanced polling question types. Those were newly added question types a few years ago, and they really open up the possibilities of the types of questions users and instructors can ask in their course. You'll also be able to identify how to generate poll reports. These are useful for attendance. These are useful for discussions down the line, a variety of uses there as well. We'll review sample poll questions, of course, and then recall some best practice use of polls. Questions on any of those before we move on? Okay, so if you're interested in building a sample poll question with myself, I'm going to recommend what I call my multitasking window setup. Essentially, that just means you're going to minimize and kind of adjust your windows at the time when we jump into that to about 50% zoom. So here on the screen, you can see Zoom that makes up about half my screen on the left. And then on the right is my Reynolds, where the Zoom portal lives. So this setup allows, let's say, for instance, I was attending this workshop, I could see the instructor demonstrate on the left in Zoom while they share their screen, and then I could replicate that on the right in my Reynolds at the same time. So that is a suggested, not required, but suggested workflow. Shannon, did you have any interest in building out Zoom polls today, or did you just want to sit back and kind of see the demonstration only?
I kind of need to do that with you. Would I be able to do one on my double screen? You know how I have two? Would
Absolutely.
I be able to just do it?
Absolutely. Whatever setup is going to be the best for you. So while I build out, if you have those 2 monitor displays, then that actually will give you more real estate where you can watch me on one monitor and I can take you step by step, and then you can build that out on the other. So
Okay.
this setup is more recommended for those on one monitor, a laptop, and it's just one of many different setups. You could do a setup where if the workshop was accommodating it, I would demonstrate for a little bit, then pause, provide time, and then you could switch windows. But if you've got the two set up, then by all means, do what you need to. I will give you advance warning when we're about to jump into that demonstration section of today's workshop. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of using Zoom polls. And I promise I won't be reading and relying on Google slide decks for today's presentation, but I do want to name some benefits as well as provide you with some of those outcomes we just glanced at. So some benefits in using Zoom polls include learning about the group. Polls are a way we can set expectations or learn from our participants their expectations of the session. That's a great way where we can kind of meet in the middle or understand kind of the prior knowledge of our learners. Zoom polls also allow us to apply learning. We can encourage active learning and engagement. That's sort of the heart of Zoom polls as an engagement tool. We can use polls to assess participation as well as gauge understanding. And then finally, as a way to segment a lecture or a class, particularly online or hybrid, we can break up our content with polls, provide, a break from the lecture or group work, and then kind of switch gears. So it kind of helps us segment that class. This screen is what I like to call the rapid fire list. So it's sort of the bread and butter, the main bullet point list of what Zoom polls can and cannot do. A lot of the questions we've gotten over the last few years with this workshop, these attempt to answer majority of them, but of course there'll be more questions, I'm sure, throughout today's workshop, as well as you start learning and building your own Zoom polls. So right out of the gate, we're just going to kind of rapid fire through this. And if you have questions about any of these, let me know now, or we can also address these at the end of today's workshop. So for Zoom polls, they are only accessed from paid Zoom accounts, which as VCCS, as part of the VCCS network in our Google email accounts, we have access to that. So we, of course, can build Zoom polls. If you have a personal account, maybe you use Zoom for a community group, for church, or just for family members, and it's free and you don't pay anything, you will not be able to create polls. With polls, we can create multiple question types. For a while, and particularly when COVID first broke out, it was only single and multiple choice. Since then, they've added matching, ranking, fill in the blank, and much, much more. And I'll show you some examples of that today. As of, I believe, this past summer, I don't think it's changed, there are a maximum of 50 polls you can create and save per meeting. There's an option for anonymous reporting. So while in a Zoom room, launching polls and having your learners report back, those are automatically anonymous. There's no way to connect an answer or a poll submission back to a current user in Zoom. However, the report feature, which essentially generates a Excel sheet, by default, those report the user. If you are an instructor or if this is a committee meeting and you want to keep your poll answers anonymous, you can always turn that on or just not look at it. Downloading those reports can happen while a Zoom meeting is in session or after that meeting. Zoom polls can be taken on an iOS or Android device, iPhones, Samsung, even tablets. Not a problem for students or users to use those. However, if you are the instructor or the host of the Zoom meeting and want to launch those polls, you need to do that from either a desktop or a laptop. You can't launch those from a mobile tablet device. We can, while we can use polls to set up a poll question to then determine breakout rooms, which is kind of a recent feature added and I think kind of unique, we cannot issue polls when breakout rooms are in session. Students or participants have to come back to the Zoom room or the main lobby, and then the polls need to be launched that way. Polls are accessible for assisted technology, but again, only on desktop or laptops. If there are students or participants who need accommodations, they should join that Zoom room on a laptop or a desktop, and should be notified in case they are going to be joining from a phone. That assisted technology will not be available. And then finally, if you do record your class, your lecture, your meeting, and you will be launching Zoom polls, those polls, unfortunately, are not captured in the recording. It's just the way in which the system is built. So I would recommend referencing those polls audibly, mentioning the numbers out loud, so at least those learners or students who watch the recording back later will have at least the audible reference to those. And or you can share out the poll results, which comes in the form of a Excel sheet.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Do you have to have the questions you want to do a polling on? Do you have to put them in before your Zoom meeting, or can you do it in the middle of a Zoom? Like as it comes to you, can you be like, hey, let's do a poll and type something in?
You absolutely can, and I will show you that in action. Essentially, we call those on-the-fly polls. They were limited a few years ago, and eventually Zoom, in one of the recent updates, provided that opportunity, that feature, and it's even more intuitive now. So yeah, if you're in the middle of a lecture and you realize, oh, I have a great idea for a poll, you take a break, bathroom break, water break for your students. You can, really quickly on the fly, just add a poll question without having to stop anything, and it'll be ready for you. It's
Okay.
a great addition that they added. So yeah, great question. Okay, so let's take a poll. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to launch some pre-made polls that I've prepared. And one thing to keep in mind as we take some of these sample polls, I've titled them, but they also, I'm going to reference sort of the benefit use of the polls that I named earlier. So for instance, the poll you see before you, learn about the group. So one benefit for a Zoom poll is a way to learn about your students, your learners. And so this is one of those examples. So if you will, go ahead and take a moment, read through that poll question, and then submit that. I always forget I have to answer on behalf of Peter Parker, so we can get as much data as possible. Okay.
What's Spider-Man say?
Yeah, right. So I'm going to end the poll on my side and share those results with the room. And here you can see, and we don't have a large sample size, but that's okay, that 50% of you have answered a Zoom poll before, and then 50% of the room has created a Zoom poll before. Also note, hosts and I believe alternative hosts cannot participate in Zoom polls. It's just because of your permission levels in the room, you cannot participate. In most, I think, scenarios doesn't warrant that, but just keep that in mind when designing polls. Okay, so that is one example about learning about your learners or the group to kind of understand, their pre-knowledge, so to speak, in this context. I'm going to stop that poll, pick my second one, and I will launch that. And I'll give you a moment to read through that. And this poll question is about, or benefit is about, setting expectation, or as an instructor or host, learning about the expectations your students came to this course. So here you can see what interests you the most about today's session on Zoom polls. Select up to 2. So go ahead and take a moment to select your 2 top interests. Go ahead and do that. All right, all results are in. I will share those out. And here we can see kind of where the room's coming from, right? We can see majority of you are interested in learning how to create polls, while a few of you to get ideas for poll questions, as well as tips and best practice use. So great way to kind of understand the expectations coming into the meeting, the training, the class, and then as an instructor or the host, you can kind of tailor and meet those needs or pivot if you need to. So 2 questions there. We saw a single choice and then a multiple choice. So you can provide options where participants can choose more than one answer. Questions on that basic interface, how you did that? Yeah, pretty straightforward. We're gonna take a pause and I'm gonna allow you to set up your displays. We're gonna get ready to build our first Zoom poll. So do what you need to do to get your displays in order. I'm also gonna do the same.
I just log into my, well, for me, it's my Brightpoint, but
Yes, we'll go into, for you, my Brightpoint, or for those watching this recording back later, my VCCS. Log into that, and then you're going to find a tile, and I'll share my screen here.
sorry, it's pinging me.
Oh, you're fine. And I will, from the Reynolds homepage, my Reynolds, and then you're going to look for the Zoom tile and launch that. From the video conferencing homepage, you're going to choose sign in, and that should bring you to the Zoom web portal. Let me know when you're there.
I'm here.
Awesome.
Wait, well, yeah, yeah, I'm here.
Okay. You may have landed on the meetings page or the profile. I've seen both. I don't know what sort of triggers that, but yeah, I'm here on the profile, and we're going to be heading to the meetings tab on the left. Okay. So what I'll do is, yeah, we'll do this together. So I'll, since we're a small group, I'll just kind of walk through step by step. If I go too fast, get my attention, let me know, and I'll slow down. If you need me to repeat a step, we'll do that just to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay.
So from the meetings tab on the left, we're going to see, this is where we're going to see all of our upcoming, our previous meetings, meeting templates, but you're going to notice on the far right tabs, we've got polls and quizzes. We're going to click on that. This edition, which I forget exactly when they updated, was extremely needed. Polls, creating polls prior to a meeting was very complicated in the beginning. I will spare you the details, but essentially they've now created the central hub where you no longer have to question, are these polls going to be in my next meeting? It's so much more streamlined. They get my chef's kiss for their design, but it wasn't always like this. So here in the poll quizzes kind of hub, you can kind of already see things take shape. If you've never created a poll, this is probably going to be blank for you.
I've got something that says no polls quizzes, and it's got a box for polls and a box for advanced polls and quizzing.
Okay, so it sounds like because yours is empty, they sort of had designated areas where you can add those. I don't think I've ever seen that because I've always had at least one poll or quiz here. What you see on my screen is as you start creating and saving polls, they will live here. And you can see the poll type, you can see how many questions are associated, you can enable or disable them. And what's convenient about the enable and disable is if you're someone who builds a lot of poll questions and you teach multiple courses, before that, excuse me, that live course starts, you can disable all the ones you know you aren't going to use, and that will save you time when you're in the session from scrolling through your entire index of polls. Instead, you could, disable all 3 of these, and then when I start this class, my next class, I would only have these 2 polls to select from. And you'll see on our next sort of phase in this workshop, I'll share my screen as the host, and I'll show you the step-by-step process of launching polls and how you can access those. But otherwise, all of your polls, when you create them, are available when you enable them that way. We can also use, go ahead.
No, you go, and then I'll go.
Okay. You can also duplicate poll questions. You can delete them from the 3-dot menu, and then to edit them, you can simply mouse over the pencil icon here on the right, or simply click on it, and that will bring up the poll creator. Question.
Okay, so let me give you a hypothetical.
Sure.
I teach medical assisting, phlebotomy, and EKGs. So would it be best for me to come up with a bunch of like medical assistant questions, a bunch of phlebotomy questions, a bunch of EKG questions, label them that way so that I know exactly which ones to put in each one.
That I would say that would be a great sort of organizational structure to make that easy for you. I'm later on I'm going to talk about designing polls to be reusable across courses. We'll talk more about that. But yes, if you're currently teaching 3 courses, one way would be to maybe label in brackets at the beginning of the poll question, you know, that course code or that course ID. If you're teaching like a Bio 101, I would name one question, you know, Bio 101 at the very beginning. So then I could simply, right before that class starts, enable the Bio 101 courses. In the beginning, if you don't have a lot of questions, then I would say it's not as dire, just because you won't be scrolling through a lot. But if you find yourself building lots of polls, then by all means, I think that'd be a great recommendation to kind of label your polls per course.
Okay.
But we'll kind of revisit this topic when we talk about the reusability, so to speak, of polls and the value in that. So that's a great question, though. All right, so we're going to create our first one. Now, you mentioned your page looks a little different than mine, but do you have a create button at the top left like I do? Somewhere like a create a poll? Or do you need to click in like one of the areas?
I think I need to click on, I probably shouldn't go to advanced polls and quizzing. I think I need to check on polls. Maybe.
Yep, let's do polls. We'll talk about advanced polls in a little bit, but yeah, let's for you, wherever you need to click on create poll, like just a standard poll, and I'll do the same here.
Mine says like untitled poll.
Yep, so it should look something like mine now.
Yes.
Yep. So we had a couple different ways to get there because you didn't have polls, but now we're on where we need to be. So this is the poll creator, as you will. I don't want to say it is extremely intuitive, but if you filled out forms, you can kind of guess at how this process is going to work. I'll show you on my side of things, filling this out, and you're feel free to kind of replicate. So at the very top, untitled poll number 5 is the name of the poll, how it'll be displayed in your sort of poll hub. So I'm going to click in there first and give this a name. I'm going to name this Apply Learning. You're welcome to duplicate the exact poll I'm doing. If you have a poll in mind, if you want to do something silly, by all means, get as creative as you want. If you're out of creative juices today, then feel free to copy exactly mine. So I'm going to call this Apply Learning. This will be an example of using a poll to apply learning for our students or participants in a class. Next is I'm going to come down and click on the untitled question. And you're going to notice it's kind of finicky. So sometimes if you try to select it all, it kind of goes away. So just be patient and work with what you have. So for this question, I'm going to type out what will be the primary reason or reasons for using a poll during your next meeting or classroom. That's our question of the day. Simple enough. Next, I'm going to go down and fill out my choices. So on choice 1, I'll select that, backspace, and then provide these. So first option will be learn about the group. Second one, set expectations. And then below that, you'll see an add choice button. So I'll just simply click that. It gives me a third choice to fill out. And then I'll continue down the line. Engagement tool, add choice, assess participation. And you'll notice a theme here of these are all the list of benefits of using polls that we talked about at the top of the hour build into this poll question. Gauge understanding.
I did something wrong.
Oop, okay.
I hit add question.
Yep, not a problem. And we'll address this. If you'd add question, it's added a second one. Just look for a little trash can down in the far right corner, delete question, and you'll click that once. And then you should come back to just your first question.
I have like 3 dots, save and cancel. Do you want me to go to cancel?
Oh, no, don't hit cancel above that. So do you currently on my screen, I'm showing two questions. The first question, which we were building, and then I've got an untitled question, which was the second question. I'm trying to mirror.
Oh, mine went down to
It
the,
went down. Oh, you had it was scrolled. Okay. So wherever your second sort of untitled question you accidentally added, you're just going to find that delete question trash can icon on the right. Click that and it should delete. Yeah, you might have to scroll up or down a bit, but just do not hit that cancel button next to save because you're going to lose all your work on the first question.
the only thing I have below the first four choices that I put in, I didn't get to gauge understanding. But it's got like 3 dots, which is not showing me anything, and like the edit question.
Interesting. Let me.
And then it goes down to another untitled question.
So on that second untitled question, if it's editable, if you can click in there and start editing it, you
Oh.
should in the like lower right corner of that second question have two icons, a delete question and a duplicate question.
Yeah, I was able to find the trash can under the second one.
Okay.
And I did that one and now go back and hit the edit question to add the gauge understanding.
Yes, it'll either be edit question or you can simply click anywhere on that first question. It should be editable then.
Oh, isn't that nice?
There you go. It's the interface is a little wonky. It has these kind of design sort of interactability stuff that it takes some getting used to, but you kind of get the hang of it after a little bit. But yeah, as long as you click into that question, it should become editable and then just continue where you left off. So for me, I just finished gauge understanding. For my choice 6, I'm going to add allocate breaks or change in content. And then I will add my last choice, apply or assess learning. And if you don't get all those in here, that's fine. As long as you get, a couple, you'll sort of get the hang of it. But I'll give you just a little bit to wrap that up. Let me know when.
I'm done.
All right. And from there, we can hit save. And then it's going to add that apply learning in your poll bank or poll hub. To edit it, to continue editing, to delete it, to make changes, you would simply click on it. So let's go ahead and click on apply learning. It's going to bring up our forum again. And I just want to take a quick overview of this interface. So where we added the question at the top, what will be the primary reason or reasons for using a poll, next to that, and you might have to click into it so it's editable, is the type of question. So right now, since we chose the standard poll question type, we can only choose single choice or multiple choice. So single choice, of course, gives our learners only one option to choose from, whereas multiple choice, or I think they should name it multiple selection, they can choose more than one. It's the difference between the radio button and the checkbox. So in this question, what will be the primary reason or reasons? So I guess we could change it to multiple choice to allow them to choose several. If we wanted to add any additional choices, we of course can choose that as we did. We talked already about deleting that question if we need to delete this entirely, or if we wanted to duplicate the question. I'm going to skip over the add question bit for a second and come down to the 3 dots next to that save button. That will give you the option to require answers to be anonymous. So this is a way in which in the report, you will not be able to determine which student, which learner submitted which way. And I'll show you an example of the report later. The add question button here. So this will add multiple questions at the same time. So if I were to choose this add question now, I don't want you to do it. Let's say question 2 was, what is your favorite planet? Filled that out and then I hit save. When you launch this question apply learning, both of those questions will appear simultaneously. Now, there may be instances where you want a scrollable poll with multiple questions at the same time. And by all means, that's the way you would do that. You would hit add question. But if you wanted to, over the course of one lecture, one course, one live synchronous class, offer multiple polls, but launch them at different times, then you would create them independently. So you would do your first question, apply learning as we have, then hit save. Then you'd come back and hit the create button at the top, choose whatever poll type, in this case polls, fill that second question out, hit save. That way you're going to have all your poll questions independent. So when you go to launch these in your course, it only shows them one at a time. Does that make sense? Kind of that. Okay. That was something I sort of learned the hard way when I first was teaching myself polls. I came to create, and unfortunately I had like a 10 question poll and I filled them all out here. I continued to add questions over questions. And then once I got into my live session, I realized, oh, all 10 questions flew at the same time. And there might not be anything wrong with that. The only thing I would caution that what that would do might be is like cognitive overload, or for some, depending on if you're doing pop quizzes or other poll question types, it could be overload for certain types of learners where they just want to see one question, focus on that answer, and then hit a next button, or when you prompt it. So just keep that in mind when you're building out questions, if you want them to appear all at once or individually. Questions about that, the process of adding those questions to your bank? Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue to, I'm going to do a new share, and I'm going to show you now from the host perspective how to launch this poll. Okay. So in Zoom, if you're the host or the alternative host, you have the ability to launch polls. So down here, I've got my poll button, and whatever poll you last issued is going to pop up. Now, if you just started a new Zoom room, you haven't launched any polls, so it's going to default to the first question. We can see here the result of the last one we issued. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to choose the back button. And now I can see my bank of questions. So I had a bunch that I had pre-built, but if I scroll all the way to the bottom, there's that apply learning we just did together, and I can see one question exists in it. When I'm ready to launch it, I'm going to hit the launch button. And now you can see from the host perspective on my share screen, I've got a little counter. So I can, if I want to give students 30 seconds to answer, I can see the running time there. I can see how many questions are being issued. And I can see, more importantly, how many people have participated as a number as well as a percentage. So if you have a class of 30 students, you can know if 25 students have participated. If you want every single student to participate, you're going to know if they've launched that or not. As we talked about earlier, one benefit of a use of poll is assess participation. So if you're teaching online or hybrid or high flex, and you have routinely students don't turn on their camera, or you're struggling to find ways to know or how to engage them in your material, one way is a poll. And if you consistently have not 100% participation rate, then that tells you a number of different things. Either some students aren't participating, maybe they're doing the join the Zoom room and then leave and never turn on the video, but it's one tool in which you can kind of assess that. So your current view might be a little layered, but you should see my shared screen as well as the actual poll that I just pushed to you. Go ahead and answer accordingly, and then I'm going to show you, and then once you submit that, you'll still be able to see my share screen, and I'll talk about sort of the data as it comes in. All right, so on my you can still see my screen, so I can see now that both 2 out of 2 of you have participated 100%, and I can see kind of how they lined up. So as a way to apply learning, we can see from this group set, you all are interested in learning about the group, setting expectations, assess participation, engage understanding. So That's kind of from the host perspective as it comes in. Now, again, I haven't shared this out. If this was a live class, my students, my learners do not know the data yet. What I would have to do is first end the poll. So now no one can submit anything. And then I have the option to share the results out. So then I would hit share results. And now you should see displayed over my shared screen the results of those options. You, of course, have the ability to close that, move it out of the way if you're done, which is nice. I like that. Students have that ability. And so that's kind of the workflow of launching a poll. From here, I could hit stop sharing, and that will stop sharing those results and then essentially close that window down for any students that it might still be up for. Back at the poll sort of portal here, I can share the result again. I've got this 3-dot menu at the bottom where I can relaunch the poll if I want to take another, use the same question later on in the class, and then kind of reassess again. I can download the results. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Or I could view the results in the browser, which there's not a really added benefit. It just shows the results in a browser form. It's still going to be the same data, just displayed a little differently. So it's just another way to view that. At any point, I can always come back, hit the back button at the top left, and then go find a new poll and then launch that. One thing to keep in mind is if you go into a poll and you hit share results, but you forget to stop sharing and you go back, you will not be able to launch a new poll. As you can see here, I can mouse over these and view them, but I can't hit the launch button because I'm still sharing the results from that first one. I found this sort of confusing at first because sometimes as an instructor, you've got a lot of things going on. You're navigating multiple screens. You might forget to stop sharing on that specific poll. If you do, the nice thing is back in your poll sort of bank, I can mouse over the one I was sharing and it says stop sharing. So I can click that. Now it stops. Now I could go up, pick a new one, and then launch it that way. So it's just kind of one of those weird quirks where if you're sharing the results, you can't just immediately launch a new one. You have to like unshare it. So it seems kind of silly to me to make that sort of a step-by-step process, but it is how the interface works. So that's kind of the interface of launching polls. Other things you can do in here on the 3-dots menu, you can edit a poll right here live. So rather than go back to the Zoom portal in My Reynolds and edit that way, you can just edit it here and it will change that instantly. Or as you raised the question earlier, this plus sign at the top right will allow you to create a question on the fly. And you get the same prompts as before. So I go in here, choose polls, click next, and then fill this out same way as we did before. So I love this. I love that you do have that option. You don't have to end a Zoom meeting. You don't have to shift gears and go back to a browser. It's all within the app itself. Questions on launching Zoom polls?
I don't think so.
Okay. We're going to now briefly, I'm going to show you some examples of other question types. We'll look at reports, and then we'll wrap up with some best practice use and some tips. If I go to new share, go back to the portal. So you should see my Zoom portal. So for the additional question type, so we looked at single and multiple choice. When I click create back in the portal, and I'm just going to do more of a demonstration. You're welcome to click along with me, but we're not going to create another poll question. But I want to show you the advanced polls and quizzes. Same, almost identical interface with our form here. So we'd give it a name, fill out the question. But now you can see down here, I've got not only single choice and multiple choice, but I've got matching. So I can do prompts on the left with the possible answers. I've got rank order, so by rows and columns. And I'll show you some example of these in the actual poll Zoom room. You can do short answers, and you can define that by the minimum and maximum number of characters. You can do long answers, fill in the blank, which is kind of fun, although it takes some getting used to with the formatting, and then the rating scale, which is interesting. With those, you can add images, and And so there's a lot more options there, including down at the bottom. Now in the 3-dot menus, you can not only require answers to be anonymous as before with the standard Zoom question types, but you can make it a quiz and set the correct answers. I don't spend a lot of time in that, but essentially when you check that, you fill out your questions as before. So if I came in here, let's say I made it a single choice, you would give these choices and then you just set an answer, which is the correct one. So the system itself knows which one is a correct answer and an incorrect answer. You can also, as a quiz, make it required, show as a drop down rather than a fill in the blank or a radio button, and you can create breakout rooms from how students answer. So if you want to make it like a fun icebreaker, you can ask questions like, what's your favorite color, or what's your favorite movie genre, just as a way to kind of randomize how breakout rooms get sorted. So that is the advanced polls and the quiz types, just to show you briefly kind of how they look in the room itself. I'm going to share my screen once again, launch polls. And so here we've got a matching type. So if I launch that, you can see the answer itself. Match the animal with the correct diet. So you've got animals on the left, goat, bear, lion, cow, zebra, and then you would answer those accordingly. I'm not going to test you on your knowledge of animal diets. You don't have to answer those, but that's what kind of matching looks like as an example. Another example, I've got rank order. This is great for lecture feedback, guest lecture, or your own lecture in a course. So here you can see various prompts on the left, and then have your students rank from excellent to poor. Sort of a tip when it comes to surveys, I always recommend doing even numbers of sort of answers, because usually if you have odd number, there's always that direct down the middle of not good, but not bad, and it's just like neutral. Sometimes having neutral questions, doesn't help the data. We want students to pick a side, right? Like this was good, or this was bad, or this was very bad, or very good. So the tip I always like to leave is give options in even numbers, so there's no like standard default. So that's rank order. Here you can see some prompts for previous knowledge of subject matter, instructor knowledge of the pacing of the presentation, the use of media, all this stuff that might be helpful for your own course or invited guest lecturers. Beyond ranked media or rank order, we've got short and long answer. These are pretty straightforward. What is one takeaway from today's guest lecture? Send that out to your class at the end, last 5 minutes. Think of it as like a 1-minute exercise, 1-minute paper exercise. And it's also a way where students can apply learning or just, reflect on the content. Fill in the blank, great way to test the mood, maybe in the middle of a lecture. Icebreaker, again, these are anonymous if you make them. So today I'm feeling, give them the option to fill that out. You can get an idea where people are coming from at the beginning of a lecture. You could change this to today's lecture. I feel comfortable about the topic. I feel confused. I feel insert the blank. So giving students sort of those options there. Rating scale. This is similar to the last one, but another way to kind of check the temperature of the course. Scale 1 to 10, how well did you understand today's material? So after your lecture's wrapped up for the week, you can kind of check in and see, are students receptive of that week's learning? Do you need to kind of review some topics or subject matters within that week's module? This way you can use rating scale as a way to assess that. And then apply learning. Okay, and we already did that. So that's kind of a range of ways to start thinking about poll question types. I'm gonna switch gears one last time, go back to the portal. Hopefully I haven't spun your head around too many times with all these shared screens. What just got shared? Let me try that again. Oh, I see what happened. Peter Parker's poll still up. Okay. I want to show you where reports live, and then we'll kind of end with some best practice slides and ways to think about using polls in our next class. So back in the portal on the left navigation, we have reports. So here, if I click on reports, and reports in Zoom, you can do a variety of things. You can access your poll reports. You can access registration, which we don't have access to with a Reynolds or VCC account. We can use reports to learn, and you may or may not be aware of this, how long a student is connected to your Zoom room. This is a great way to assess participation. Not as a participation, I should change that for attendance. So whatever your attendance policy, at the very minimum with reports, you can check, Billy was logged into the Zoom room for 58 minutes of 60 minutes of my lecture. If you've got a big class and students are logging at the beginning when you take a manual attendance, and then you notice that they've only been in the room for 5 minutes, and then that's an indication they might be trying to sneak by and get through roll call, and then they're bouncing. So reports can be used in a variety of ways to help assist you in teaching online, hybrid, or high flex. We're going to look at reports really quick. So we've got a usage and a meeting report type. You can read the description for each, but here for meeting, we can see poll reports. So we're going to select that. Then you need to kind of tell Zoom your window of that you're meeting. For whatever reason, they limit it to 1 month. So whenever it fell, you'll just fill that out accordingly. My demonstration, I think I'm going to do April. Last year, I had a couple offerings. So just come in here. Nope, April's not working. It's grayed out. Why is it grayed out? Oh, I think it's because of this. It's not letting me go all the way back. Okay. Well, we'll just see if we can find another. Looks like you can only go. Now I'm going in the future. Let's try this again. So you'd select your window. I'll just do this. And then you do search. And of course, there's no data there. If I can show you one, if I go back to April, I don't know why, maybe I got my years mixed up. Let's try this. April of this last year, what happens? Nothing. Fantastic. Well, I have the CSV prepared, so I will launch that now on my desktop. But essentially, when you put in your correct range, you've actually launched a poll. You'll see it here, and then you can click it, and it will download as a Excel sheet. I have it right here. And you should see that now. Pretty basic. Again, if you need this for attendance purposes or just to kind of reassess how students are answering on certain questions, you can open it up and save it this way. You notice, and if you're not familiar with Excel, if you get these hashtag or pound signs, it just means the data or the text in there goes beyond the cell. So if you just stretch that, then it's going to reveal. So the way they kind of set this up is you can see, the poll information here when it was generated for which meeting, all the useful information about the room, and then you get your questions, and I'll highlight them here just so they are easier to consume. And you can see, okay, first question was launched, how familiar are you with Zoom polls? And you can see all of my users here and how they answered. Second question, what interests you the most? Here are my users. Here are how they answered and the timestamps. So if they've signed in correctly to their VCC account, they're signed into the Zoom app, you're going to see not only their name, but also their email address. So by default, that information will be provided. Back when we were creating poll questions, there was that checkbox, make anonymous. If you were to check that, then their names would just be, I think it's anonymous user 1, anonymous user 2, and that way you can, turn off any biases if you want. So Zoom reports might be useful for polls, maybe it's not, but I just wanted to give you a glimpse of kind of how that gets generated. Questions on reports? Okay, let's head back to our slide deck, and we're going to wrap up with a few best practice pointers, and then I'll leave it open to any questions that you might have at the end. So, useful poll question types. We touched on a couple of these, but this is just to get you to start thinking about different types of questions, how you can ask them and frame them in your course. We've got icebreakers, assess prior knowledge. Assess prior knowledge is a great way. You know, an example could be, how familiar are you with this concept? So kind of knowing the baseline of where your students are with certain topic. You can use them as formative assessments or knowledge checks. So whether it's midway through a lecture, kind of check in, get that immediate feedback from students. How are you feeling on this? Or is everyone doing great? And kind of confirm that transfer of learning. Similarly, you have the temperature check. So how are you feeling on a topic? You know, questions or answers that they can submit or choose from. I don't understand, sort of understand, or I need more time, or I understand completely, are great ways to kind of check in with your learners. Self-assessment is a way, it's great for group activities, maybe labs, or group projects. You could, questions like, how did you do? You know, did your outcomes meet your expectations? You know, simple answers could be nailed it, not quite, nope, or none of the above. Discussion based, so those are great with breakout rooms or other types of assignments. Surveys, I showed a couple of those today about, you know, guest lecture feedback or class surveys on your of your own quizzes. Didn't touch a lot on this, but building in pop quizzes to assess knowledge, assess that transfer of learning. And even, which we didn't talk about today, is reactions, using reactions or emojis in Zoom, which I call our non-polling poll. Simple way to kind of just allow students to express themselves, even if it is just an emoji. Beginning of class, hey, how's everyone feeling? How was your weekend? Let students kind of get creative with those emojis. Seems simple enough, but can go a long way to create a, you know, an environment where students are engaged, even if it is just simple mouse clicks. I've marked a couple of these. You can see my key here by reusable polls and ones that would be great for quizzes. The reusable polls I will push and recommend as ways where you, if you write the questions generic enough, you can use them across different courses. Now, there might be some polls that you want specific to a biology 101 or accounting course. But the more generic questions you have, then the less space it'll take up in your bank, and you can reuse them over and over and over. So icebreakers, of course, are great for this. The temperature check. So if it's generic enough to, how do you feel on today's topic, right? That could be used in any course. Surveys, same way. So there could be value in creating course specific questions as you brought up, and in that case, yes, I think naming your poll questions by the course is a great way to organize that. But I would also encourage you, build some reusable polls so you can use them across any course, and a lot of those will fall in the category of self-assessment or course assessment. Questions on those question types or ways to think about designing courses, course polls?
I think the reason I really wanted to, you've done a great job, and I really like what you're telling me. And I think I'm going to use it with my upcoming class that starts next week.
Okay.
I was looking at, doing those professional learning things we have to do. I was looking at this one person that was talking about doing all things during the new hybrid classes that we're having to do, such as polling. And she came up with about 15 other different little games that you can play with your students to keep them engaged and things like that. Some of them I know my 14-year-old, when he was in middle school, was doing some of those little quick games. Do you know what I'm talking about? What starts with a K?
So Kahoot, you're talking about like
Okay.
third party? Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
these free. There's some great tools out there. Kahoot is one of them. There's like flashcard based games. There are cloud based games. Quizlet, Slido, yeah, that are just like can be as simple as question prompts that then students can submit anonymously, and they can see collectively like how the class is responding. So Zoom polls fit in this category, and I've been wanting to develop a workshop that covers a lot of these, because there's a lot of instructors using some of these, and some instructors out there know about them, some of them don't, and so it's just a matter of word of mouth and seeing it demonstrated to really generate other ways we can engage students, particularly in our online and hybrid courses, because especially in Zoom, you're limited, and particularly since we can't force students to turn on their web camera, how else can we assess engagement? So these tools, the ones we've named, including Zoom polls, are some of those ways we can accomplish that.
Yeah, that's the exact reason why I wanted to do this, because I didn't know how to implement polls, but we do all of our certifications through NHA. And so when I'm watching some of their webinars and things like that, they do polls. And when
Okay.
I saw polls show up on our Zoom stuff, I was like, huh, I wonder how we can put that in. And so, that's exactly why I signed up for this course with you, and then want to, look at the other ones as well. But the lady that was talking was like, I had reached out to her actually afterwards to get her, what she does with things, because my classes are about 4 hours long
Oh,
in one day.
yeah.
And so they're like 10 to 2 days a week. And I was like, how long would you wait before integrating these different tools and things like that, like the
Right.
polls and Kahoots and things like that? She's like, every 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I'm like, she's like, that's how you know they're staying in with you. If you kind of,
Right.
you
No,
know,
I think those are good points in that, especially for those longer classes. Zoom polls, these other applications and free tools out there, great way to, yes, check in and make sure students are still engaged, but it's a way to break up that content, to segment, if you will. So it's not just a talking head with a PowerPoint, right, with a share screen, but it's okay. Here's a 20-minute presentation on X. Let's now take a quick poll, even if it's just light, to kind of switch gears, and it helps break that up. And so whether you're doing it every 10 minutes, which I would probably say might be a little overkill, um, it is a good way to break up that. And that's a great question that kind of leaves us into our last slide here. Oh, my title's wrong. Useful poll question types. This should say best practices and final points. So let's do that. And that is exactly these considerations for what is too many polls in a single class. Here's some best practices that I think will be helpful. Keep your poll questions simple. Don't go overboard. We just obviously spoke to that about the quantity. Avoid combined questions. So we talked about when adding those questions that appear simultaneously, there is this notion of cognitive overload. So for some learners, seeing 3 different questions simultaneously that you have to scroll and answer can be overwhelming. So often display a question one at a time. Create the polls before your meeting. Now, of course, I walked you through how you can add them on the fly, and there might be great opportunities where you come up with something in the moment. And of course, with Zoom polls, we can build those and make them available to our students. But have polls ready to go so you're prepared. You can launch those and make that seamless. Talked about creating reusable polls, so that you can use them across multiple courses, but also the importance of course specific questions to the content, and I think those will be of value just as much. Used to break up your lectures and meetings. Again, I've spoken to this on a couple occasions. Icebreakers. This is a great way to set the tone, especially the first day of class, the beginning of any class. Just kind of this is the tone. It could be silly, it could be serious, whatever you're trying to kind of capture in that day. A great way to start things off. Polls are a great way to reduce student participation barriers. So some students who feel uncomfortable speaking up in class, turning on their camera, they kind of want to remain anonymous. We can respect that, but still use these tools like polls, Slido, or the other ones we named, where they can remain anonymous but still participate in that community in their class. And so it doesn't put all this pressure on. You have to speak up as the only way to engage in that class that week. And then finally, it's a way to increase students' feeling of engagement and belonging. So, whether it's as simple as responding with how you're feeling with an emoji, or answering a silly question on your favorite type of lunch sandwich, fill in the blank, whatever it is. It's a great way where, as a student who might feel isolated already in an online or high flex course, can see their classmates, even if they are virtual, respond to the similar questions. And it does kind of create that sense of community, which can go such a long way in a course, whether it's a 15-week, 7-week, or any other length. So with that, like to always check in back on the learning objectives at the beginning. So we took a Zoom poll together. We took several. I showed you how to create a Zoom poll. We looked at the advanced poll question types and kind of the details you could get out of those. We identified how to generate poll reports, reviewed sample poll questions, and then we called best practice use of those polls. These slides, and if you want the whole presentation, I can include that in the email that I'll send out after today's workshop. But like the best practices and the other stuff, I'll include as resources, so you don't have to either take a screenshot or jot these notes down. So you'll have those made available to you. So with that, and to piggyback on the email that I'll send out, I'll be sending the email out here shortly. It's got a survey on today's workshop. Submissions are anonymous. Let me know about today's workshop, the experiences, what could be done better, what worked for you, and then I'll include all the resources in some of these slides as well. But without further ado, and I appreciate you hanging back a couple minutes or a few minutes past the hour, are there any questions that are still on your mind, things that you're thinking about at the moment?
No, just if you do set another one up with other things like the kudos and all those other ones, I definitely want to sign up for that one too. So that would be
Awesome.
great.
Yeah. I would say keep a lookout on our event calendar off the CETL webpage. We post all of our upcoming sessions. Our all fall is filled, but occasionally we'll add newly developed ones mid-semester, midstream. We send out communication via our newsletter that goes out to all teaching faculty, adjuncts, full-time, but also keep an eye on our website where those offerings are made available. So other than that, thank you, Shannon, for your time. And as always, if you have any questions about Zoom polls, Canvas, or any other online teaching tools, you can shoot us an email at CETL, CETL @reynolds.edu, and we'd be happy to assist. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.